What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So real quick, down in the comments, there appear to be quite a few spam bots just sort of popping up, and I've had some of you even email me about this. You can see these here that I just clipped as I was going through and just removing them manually, but they appear to have like the SpawnWave image, and then they have like WhatsApp and say that everyone's winning stuff and you should contact them. That is not me. I'm gonna go through and continue trying to remove these, but they seem to pop up as fast as I pull them down. So just ignore them and hopefully they'll stop posting. I guess that's how you know you've made it when these start showing up. Anyway, though, we have a bunch of things to go over today, which does include our first real indication around how Metroid Dread sales are going, and sounds like we may find out what happens at the end of Balan Wonderworld from what we're seeing so far. Also, we're going to talk about the Xbox Series system, as it is also rolling along with sales, even already overshadowing the Xbox One in one region. And we are going to talk about Sony and how they're working to combat scalpers as they head into the holidays with the PS5. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the SpawnWave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with some unfortunate news around Metroid Dread. And this has to do with the ending credits. We can see this over on Nintendo Everything, where it says Metroid Dread devs for Mercury Steam speak out after not being included in the credits. And I was looking through this and it seems kind of odd to me, and I double checked with a couple of people who actually create and develop games and have had their name in credits. This is strange to them as well. According to Spanish site Vandal, the studio has confirmed a policy in which developers who worked for less than 25% of the game's total development time are not included in the credits. The company is said to make exceptions for exceptional contributions, though the specifics surrounding this are unclear. Mercury Steam employees say that Metroid Dread was in the works for 4 years, meaning staff would need to have been involved for at least 12 months to be credited. In fact, some people who did work on different things in the game, like Roberto, who is a 3D artist, wrote about this on their LinkedIn page, letting people know that, yeah, I've noticed some things in Metroid Dread that I worked on, and I'm not at all credited in the ending credits, which is strange. You feel like you would just put them in the credits at the end as they're rolling through. It's not like you don't have room for them there. And the biggest thing here is they're not like looking for like more money or anything. It's nothing about that. It's about credit, because they can then go along here in their career, work to further it by saying, hey, I was working on Metroid Dread, which is a game that's currently sitting at an 89 on Metacritic and probably will be in the conversation here in the next month or two when it comes to Game of the Year. So you could go off to another job opportunity and say, yeah, I worked on Metroid Dread, the game that potentially just won Game of the Year. So hopefully Mercury Steam gets this worked out and is able to change up the credits and add these people in, because it seems weird that you would work on the game for like 8 months and potentially have some serious contributions to 3D modeling and just not be included in the credits. Weird that you could work for 23% of the development time, missed by 2%. Also, Final Fantasy XIV has exploded in popularity. I see people talking about it constantly on Twitter, and it looks like there are still talks going on around an Xbox version of this game. We can see this posted up by Windows Central with an interview that Easy Allies had with game director Yoshida, saying we're still in discussions with Microsoft, and I feel like our discussions are going in a positive like tone. I don't want to say we do not have an Xbox version, but I'm hoping that the timing will be very soon, that I will have some kind of update to the players. Now, Final Fantasy XIV has become the most profitable entry in the entire Final Fantasy franchise, with over 24 million players, and it's just rolling along. So I would assume they want to try to get that to as many systems and people as possible, and I wouldn't be shocked if, yeah, we see an Xbox version pop up, and then maybe even a Switch version or one for a future Nintendo system. And the biggest thing I believe is they wanted crossplay across the board, which that makes sense. They want everyone to be able to play together no matter what system they're on, so we'll keep following this and see if they have any updates as we go forward. Oh, and a quick update on the new Dragon Age game that we've had revealed and then revealed again, but we haven't actually seen any real gameplay or visuals or nothing like that. But it is exciting to know that Dragon Age is in development at BioWare. It does appear, though, they will not be attempting a last generation version, just for current gen consoles. We can see this over on VentureBeat. Dragon Age 4 is heading to PS5, Xbox Series XS without cross-gen releases. And Jeff Grubb has also been able to confirm this a bit further as well. So it looks like we are just going to see a PS5, Xbox Series, and PC release. Makes a ton of sense considering you take a game like that that's probably not even coming out for another 2 or 3 years, we'll say, and you still try to jam it onto the older Xbox One VCR, that could probably cause some issues for a studio that I think needs just a big win in general. So the less systems they have to focus on for them, probably the better. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Metroid Dread and Nintendo Switch OLED sales. These, of course, were in the Famitsu sales charts that were released, and we're just gonna head over here to the top 10 games right away, because yes, you can see right at the top there, Metroid Dread, 86,798 copies. Remember, these are all physically sold games over the counter in Japan. These do not count digital sales. I would say with what we're seeing right now with the digital physical split, there's a very good chance that Metroid Dread debuted with over 100,000 copies sold in Japan if you take those digital copies into account. Then we have Far Cry 6 on the PS4 at 2, Far Cry 6 on the PS5 at 3, so Metroid Dread managed to outsell Far Cry 6, which was sold on 2 different platforms there in Japan. Good stuff. Then we have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Ring Fit Adventure, Minecraft, Doki Doki Literature Club, Lost Judgment, and WarioWare Get It Together. Now, we do also have some numbers of past entries in the Metroid franchise from Game Data Library. We can see here with 10 of them listed. Metroid Dread compares very favorably in its opening week. In fact, if we kind of look up and down the chart here with the different numbers from the ones we have available, like we don't have the original Metroid from the NES available with its first week, but it's already outsold all of them. In fact, if you look at the lifetime sales, it's above everything except for Metroid Prime Hunters and Metroid Fusion. It's already sold more than half of what Metroid Fusion sold in its lifetime and is right there up against Metroid Prime Hunters. And like I said, if you take digital sales into account, it's even closer to Metroid Fusion. So this is a phenomenal start for Metroid Dread overall. The other interesting side effect for Metroid Dread is it appears to have sparked some interest in previous entries. Who would have thought, Nintendo, that, hey, maybe bringing Metroid Fusion, Zero Mission, maybe even the Prime Trilogy over to the Switch would have been a good idea, because we can see this tweet from Shine Sparkers. It says an update from the eShop sales chart in the United Kingdom as it stands on October 11th. Metroid Dread, of course, was #1 on the Switch, as it pretty much topped the eShop charts across all regions on the Switch. But on the Wii U, we can see Metroid Fusion was #1, Metroid Zero Mission #2, Prime Trilogy at 7, Super Metroid at 9, and then on the 3DS, Metroid Samus Returns was #3. So it does appear that Metroid Dread is reaching a whole new audience, which to me says we'll probably see Metroid Dread make a solid attempt at becoming the best-selling Metroid game in its franchise, that being that 3 million or so unit mark. I do believe it's going to happen in its first year. We'll find out more hard numbers in January. So towards the end of January, we'll find out all about Nintendo's holiday time period here. And I would say if Metroid Dread is over 2 million units at that time in January, counting up to the end of December, it's more or less going to get the 3 million copies, as it will have pretty much the next 10 months or so, because the bet was within the first year to sell another 1 million copies, and that's something that I think it will be able to do. But we'll keep an eye out for the NPD sales, as in the West is typically where Metroid does very well. So we'll find out about that about midway through November for the month of October. But also, let's take a look at the Switch OLED sales, which this was over on the Famitsu sales charts. Starting with that Nintendo Switch OLED model, 138,409 systems did sell in that Friday and Saturday time period. And according to a couple of different sources online, it appears that most shops in Japan had to run a lottery system just to find out who would have an opportunity to buy a Switch OLED model. So essentially they were selling through them no problem. And it does appear that they are actually supply constraint right now in Japan. So we'll see how that affects things going forward here, especially with next week's sales. And then we have just the regular Switch at #2, 32,792. The PS5, 13,786. The Switch Lite, 8,650. The Xbox Series S, 2,920. Then we have the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition at 2,099. In fact, that Series S outsold the digital PS5 edition. That's actually kind of surprising there. The PS4, 961. The Xbox Series X, 527. And then we have the new 2DS LL that includes the 2DS at 405. So overall, it looks like the Switch OLED is off to a good start here. It's more or less going to come down to how much stock can Nintendo get out to stores as we head towards the holidays, where certainly the OLED is going to be a hot item. I know there were a lot of us who were disappointed that Nintendo didn't do more with the chip inside that X1, make it more powerful, so we get better frame rates, better resolutions, but it does seem like Nintendo is more or less going to work towards potentially next generation in a year or two anyway, as we'd be coming up on that 6-year mark. So maybe they're looking at this as kind of that bridge to that next gen system. Or who knows, maybe they want to just make this Switch life even longer and have a revision. But for now, the Switch OLED does appear to be selling very well. And I mean, the screen's awesome. It's just not a lot for anyone who is really docked, and that's it. But either way, it looks like Nintendo has once again released a new system in the Switch line that is selling out. Go figure. Next up, let's talk about the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X working to eclipse the Xbox One in Japan in a fraction of the time. We can see this over on Twitter, posted up by John Welfare, saying Xbox Series X and S has passed 100,000 units in Japan at 102,591. That tracked by Famitsu. We just went over that. This is faster than the Xbox One, which needed 50 months to hit 100K. And this is good for Microsoft, obviously. Now look, the 102,000 units obviously isn't impressive based on what's around it. We just talked about the Switch debuting with an OLED system and in 2 days selling 138,000 units, but Microsoft has struggled in Japan, especially with that Xbox One. The 360 actually did all right. I think it sold 1.5 million systems. So it's pretty good for Microsoft in a country that isn't exactly excited about the Xbox One. Remember, for a while there, the Xbox One was being sold as a Blu-ray player. They didn't even really call it an Xbox. It's just like, oh, look, we have a Blu-ray player for sale. It just happens to look like an Xbox. Can you go ahead and buy this? The Series system, though, seems to be more interesting in that region. Obviously, the numbers show that, but specifically that Series S. Now, it could be because the Series X is not as widely available, but if you look at the Series S and what it's offering with Game Pass, it's a pretty good deal, and it's smaller, which is also good because typically in Japan, the larger systems, from what I've gathered online from people mentioning this and talking about just the overall consumer base in Japan, aren't exactly excited about having a massive system in their house, and in fact, they do seem to prefer things like mobile phones and the Switch, right? So it makes sense why Microsoft would be pushing things like cloud gaming in that direction, but also working to maybe provide more Xbox Series S systems. They're cheaper, they're smaller, and it makes sense overall for the region. Although I have been seeing more Xbox Series S systems just like available around me in stores at like Walmart or Best Buys, just in stock. So maybe Microsoft is saving a lot of the Xbox Series X boards for things like their data centers, where they're trying to outfit that for next generation games through xCloud and game streaming. And the Series S is something they're not going to be putting in their data centers, and they're just kind of pushing them out to stores. Either way, though, Microsoft is off to a good start once again for Microsoft in Japan. We'll see if they can continue to build on that as they go along through this generation. Next up, let's talk about Sony, the PlayStation 5 and Scalpers once again. They've pretty much taken over this entire console space since we've pretty much been stuck buying these systems online, and we know how it goes with bots that swoop in, crash these websites, then make a dash out the back door with like 5 or 6 PlayStation 5 systems, as we're all sitting there looking at an empty cart wondering what happened. Well, it looks like Sony is at least setting up a way to get people a PS5 who actually use the PS5 and not just sit in their garage waiting for someone to click buy on eBay. We can see this webpage that's been set up by Sony. So if you are looking for a PS5, you're going to want to go over and get signed up here. Register for an opportunity to purchase a PS5 console from PlayStation. That's where we are about right now, by the way. We are just getting the opportunity to give Sony $500 or $400, I guess, if you want the digital one. This coming holiday season, we'll have a limited amount of PS5 consoles available for customers in the US to purchase direct from PlayStation. If you're interested in receiving an invitation, register below. It looks like what they're going to be doing is just sending out emails as they get PS5s available with instructions and details. Basically, you'll be able to go to a web page that also has accessories and stuff, of course, surrounding the PS5, trying to get you to buy into those as well. But the good news here is you would have access to a PS5 at its suggested retail price, not the suggested eBay price. And the biggest thing here is Sony appears to be taking like your PlayStation Network handle and I guess looking into how much you're actually playing your PS5. So if you're, say, someone who is looking to resell and you just made an account so you can do that, they'll notice, oh, you don't have any trophies and you're not even playing your PlayStation, you're probably not in it to actually play this one they'd be buying, you're probably looking to flip it online. So at least Sony is trying to figure something out here. I still would prefer for them to just start shipping systems to stores, Walmarts, Best Buys, or any of that. At least give people a shot locally at these systems, because we've seen what happens when they go online. It's basically a free-for-all at that point. It's like, good luck to everyone. Hopefully you can next your way through that order form and get to the point where your credit card is accepted and the system doesn't get canceled later on and you find that email from a Walmart or a Best Buy. But either way, if you're looking to get a PS5 for this holiday, start preparing now. Go get signed up here and keep an eye on your inbox. Hopefully you'll get an email here in the coming weeks so you can have one of these ready for the holiday. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Call of Duty and their new anti-cheat setup that they have announced here called RICOCHET. We can see this over on The Verge saying Call of Duty's new anti-cheat system includes a kernel-level driver to catch PC cheaters. And on one hand, it's good that they are taking this seriously, because I know I've seen a lot of people mention this, Call of Duty Warzone just being absolutely rushed with different people who are cheating in the game. And obviously Call of Duty Vanguard is coming up here. And really, it seems like Activision is at least looking into the situation, as there are just a lot of complaints around it. But a PC kernel level driver with machine learning algorithms to examine player behavior, and a team of dedicated professionals. That's kind of the idea and what they're doing here. Just like I said, taking it very seriously. The problem here is that the kernel level driver isn't exactly something that everyone wants to be on their system. It really does run in like a very high level in Windows, and there have been concerns around privacy, for example, with this sort of setup. But even with that said, I'm sure there are people who are at least happy to see some sort of serious anti-cheat measures being taken. Unfortunately, it looks like it's already leaked and people are looking into it and working, I guess, to reverse engineer so they can crack the whole thing. We can see this over on Twitter, posted up by Anti-Cheat Police Department, saying, unfortunately, the kernel level driver for a Call of Duty new anti-cheat called Ricochet got leaked today, and P2C devs are already reversing it. This is already very bad. Yeah, that's not great. If they're already reverse engineering it so that they can then crack this and it won't really do much for your experience, seems like a waste at that point. It does feel like there's always going to be this cat and mouse game between Activision, their dedicated team working with this Ricochet anti-cheat setup, and people looking to reverse it so that they can then still cheat in the game. We'll see how this goes, especially with the release of Call of Duty Vanguard, as it will, of course, have crossplay, which means that would still affect console players as well as PC players. And here's hoping the release of all of this is smooth. The kernel-level driver doesn't really mess with people's machines, but fortunately, we've seen the complete opposite at times. But I guess we'll find out next month when it releases. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, these are the highest rated new games of the year so far. Which one should win Game of the Year? I have Psychonauts 2, that's at 12%, It Takes Two at 6%, Metroid Dread at 60%, Deathloop at 4%, and then Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart at 18%. So looking up and down this list here, it's a pretty diverse list, really, if you look at it. But I did notice a few games that are not on here, specifically Resident Evil Village and Monster Hunter Rise. What I did here was I essentially started at the top for Metacritic and went down until I had 5 different games selected, new games that had at least 15 reviews. And this is the list that came up with here. Now, there will be 6, I believe, that are nominated for the Game Awards here in a month or so. But I feel like because Metacritic does pretty much reflect how critics are looking at these games, probably most, if not all, of these will be in that conversation, potentially right next to Resident Evil Village. And if Metroid Dread is up there, I think it actually has a chance. Like, I know it's a 2D game and people were looking at it like, oh, it's just a 2D game. How can it stand up to something like Ratchet & Clank or even Deathloop that critics really enjoyed? Well, Metroid Dread's just good. I finished it the other night and it was a fantastic experience. It took me a little over 7 hours, so it wasn't like long, but I am already going back through it on hard mode and still having a blast. So I think I'm going to get a solid 15 to 20 hours out of this game, which is, 15 hours what I got out of Ratchet & Clank, and Resident Evil, I played through it like 2 or 3 times and I got like like 12 or 13 hours out of it, so it's actually about right. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Kaiju saying, I love the hint of disappointment in your voice when talking about the mobile Mega Man game. I just remember what Mega Man used to be back in the day. It was super hype. We would get a lot of advertisement in different magazines and stuff. It was just an exciting time. We had so many different Mega Man games of different genres, like the Battle Network. We'd even still have collections that come out of older Mega Man games alongside of like X7 and X8. I know those weren't the highest praised games or anything, but we still had that. We still had even weird ones like Command Mission back in the day. It's just Capcom was all in on Mega Man, and now it just feels like they forgot about it. But it's hard when you have a series like Monster Hunter just raking it in, and Resident Evil continues to get bigger and bigger as we've gone along. So that's just where we are right now. Mega Man has pretty much been relegated to being a mobile game currently. I'm hoping that Capcom hasn't completely forgot about the series and we will see a Mega Man X9, but I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon. And ladies and gentlemen, that's good to hear for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button or lips out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's Metroid's fast start in Japan, already outpacing basically all other Metroid games right out of the gate. But will it sell 3 million copies in its first year? Let me know about that one. Also, what about the Xbox? Already working to eclipse the Xbox One in Japan in a fraction of the time. And then the PlayStation 5. A lot of people are going to be looking for it this holiday. It appears they're going to try to get some out to people who will actually play it. Or are you going to try to get it through that website? Thanks, guys, for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here at Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.